the enduring fascination with the supernatural. Across time and culture, human beings have always been captivated by the unknown, especially by the idea that life might not end with death. In a recent YouGov poll conducted in Britain, it was revealed that belief in the supernatural is surprisingly widespread. Approximately 1 in 4 British people believe that houses can be haunted by some kind of supernatural entity. Almost as many individuals affirm that ghosts are real. Beyond mere belief, thousands have even claimed personal experiences of witnessing or encountering a ghost or spirit, which raises an important question. Are these experiences grounded in reality, or are they elaborate projections of the mind? The fascination with ghosts, spirits, and supernatural beings is far from a modern phenomenon. From ancient Egyptian mummies to Chinese hungry ghosts to Irish banshees and American poltergeists, nearly every civilization has its own lore involving the return of the dead or the presence of spiritual entities among the living. Ghost stories have been passed down orally for generations, transformed into folklore-inspired literature, and now dominate much of modern pop culture. Movies, books, and even YouTube videos abound with chilling tales of haunted houses, cursed objects, and unexplained phenomena. But what lies beneath this universal obsession? Is it a search for answers, a fear of the unknown, or a desperate hope that death is not the end? Many people report direct experiences that reinforce their belief. These encounters range from fleeting shadows and strange noises to full-blown apparitions and conversations with unseen beings. Such events often occur in places with a dark past, old houses, abandoned hospitals, ancient castles, and they tend to carry a powerful emotional charge. In many cases, the people who experience these phenomena aren't necessarily believers beforehand. Sometimes it's the experience itself that converts the skeptic. However, for every believer, there's a counter voice from the scientific community that suggests a different explanation. Psychologists, neuroscientists, and skeptics argue that these experiences are more likely the result of a complex blend of psychological factors, environmental triggers, and social influence. The brain is a powerful tool capable of creating highly convincing illusions, particularly in moments of emotional stress, fatigue, or fear. The debate over whether ghosts are real or imagined isn't likely to be resolved anytime soon, but it remains a fertile ground for exploration, storytelling, and inquiry. This article will take you on a journey through both sides of the argument. We will examine the psychological foundations of ghost sightings, delve into stories supported by photo and video evidence, investigate infamous haunted locations, and look into ancient legends such as the banshee. Ultimately, we'll explore whether these tales are rooted in reality or simply figments of the human mind. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, one thing is clear. The allure of the supernatural is far from fading. Psychology and the power of suggestion in supernatural encounters. The mind is a powerful architect of perception, and in many cases, it may be the mind rather than the paranormal that gives rise to ghostly encounters. While belief in ghosts remains widespread, psychologists and neuroscientists have long proposed that many so-called supernatural experiences are the result of suggestion, expectation, and the emotional state of the observer. This is where the power of suggestion plays a key role, especially in settings that are already primed for fear. Imagine walking into a dark, unfamiliar house at night. You've heard rumors that the place is haunted. The floors creak, The wind howls, and somewhere in the distance a shadow moves. In such an environment, your senses are heightened and your brain is on alert. According to psychological research, if you're expecting to see something strange, such as a ghost or spirit, you're far more likely to interpret an ordinary stimulus as paranormal. A cold draft becomes a chilling presence. A flickering light morphs into a spectral figure. A creaking pipe transforms into ghostly footsteps. These misinterpretations aren't just hallucinations, they're shaped by real stimuli filtered through the lens of fear, anticipation, and cultural conditioning. This psychological phenomenon is known as top-down processing. It means your brain uses prior knowledge, beliefs, and expectations to interpret sensory information. If you believe in ghosts or are told a location is haunted, your brain is already wired to look for confirmation of that belief. A study involving Ouija boards exemplifies this effect. Participants were more likely to believe an object moving or a sound occurring was a result of spirit activity simply because they expected something to happen. Even when objects were moved by natural causes, a breeze or vibration, participants interpreted the event as supernatural because of the context they were placed in. This isn't to say that people who see ghosts are simply gullible or imaginative. Rather, the brain is doing what it's designed to do: fill in gaps, make sense of ambiguity, and prioritize survival by detecting threats, even imaginary ones. The concept of pareidolia also plays into this, our tendency to see familiar patterns, such as faces or figures in random visual stimuli. It's the same reason we can see animals in clouds or human shapes in shadows. In the dark, with limited information, the brain connects the dots, sometimes incorrectly. Furthermore, fear has a powerful influence on memory and perception. When we're scared, the amygdala, the brain's emotional center, goes into overdrive, amplifying sensations and encoding memories more vividly. This emotional intensity makes the experience feel even more real in retrospect. We remember the fear, the chills, and the conviction that something unexplainable occurred, even if it didn't. In short, our beliefs and emotional states can shape our perception so strongly that we may sincerely experience something that isn't objectively real. That doesn't mean these experiences are meaningless. They're psychologically meaningful, emotionally impactful, and very real to the person experiencing them. But from a scientific standpoint, they may not point to an actual ghostly presence. Still, even with these psychological explanations, some cases remain puzzling. Some photos, videos, and stories defy easy dismissal. Could it be that the mind explains most, but not all of what we call hauntings? Or are we simply unwilling to let go of mystery? These are the questions we continue to explore. Controversial photographic evidence. Between illusion and proof. While psychology may account for a significant portion of ghost sightings, there's a different category of supernatural claims that resists easy dismissal: photographic and video evidence. For decades, people around the world have captured images that appear to depict spectral figures, shadowy apparitions, or strange lights in places believed to be haunted. Some of these photos have gone viral, sparked debate, or even drawn the attention of paranormal investigators. But the question remains: do these images provide real evidence of the supernatural, or are they simply products of illusion, coincidence, or even digital manipulation? Consider a widely circulated photograph taken by a couple shortly after they moved into a new house. While exploring their new space, they found an old guitar left behind by the previous occupant. Playfully, they decided to take photos with the instrument. But when the film was developed, this was before the era of phone cameras. Something unexpected appeared, what looked like a pale, transparent figure sitting in a chair in the background. Upon researching the history of the house, the couple learned that the previous owner, a man who was known to be a passionate guitarist, had died in that very room. The connection between the ghostly figure and the man's love for music was too eerie to ignore. Was it mere coincidence, or had the man's spirit lingered, drawn back by the sound of his beloved guitar? In another case, a woman reported seeing a shadowy figure seated in the same spot where her grandmother used to sit before passing away. She captured photos over time, convinced that her Nan had not fully crossed over and still occupied that space. These stories, though anecdotal, are compelling because they resonate with universal human emotions, grief memory, and the need for connection with those who have passed. Skeptics often argue that such photos can be easily explained. Some are the result of long exposures, reflections, lens flares, or double exposures, common artifacts in older cameras and even in some modern devices. In the digital age, the line between authentic and manipulated has only become blurrier. With a few clicks in Photoshop or through mobile apps, anyone can superimpose a ghostly silhouette into an otherwise normal photo. Still, not all images show obvious signs of tampering, and some continue to puzzle even experienced photographers and analysts. The issue of credibility arises frequently. Those who believe in the paranormal argue that not all images can be debunked. They point to a subset of photos that have been examined forensically and found to show no signs of manipulation, yet still depict something inexplicable. On the other hand, skeptics contend that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, and that just because we can't immediately explain an image doesn't mean it confirms the existence of ghosts. What's particularly fascinating is how our interpretation of an image changes based on context. If we are told the photo was taken in a haunted house, we are more likely to see the ghost. If no context is provided, we might overlook it entirely or see it as a trick of the light. Again, the power of suggestion and our own expectations play a central role in how we process visual information. Nevertheless, these controversial photos continue to ignite curiosity, fear, and wonder. Whether they are authentic glimpses into another realm or simply snapshots of our psychological projections, they represent something deeply human, our desire to understand shadow people, a darker side of the paranormal. Among the many forms of paranormal encounters reported around the world, one of the most chilling and enigmatic is the phenomenon known as shadow people. Unlike traditional ghost sightings where apparitions may appear translucent, human-like and even identifiable, shadow people are described as entirely dark, featureless figures, often humanoid in shape, but lacking any details such as eyes, mouths, or clothing. Their very nature seems more alien, more primal, and arguably more terrifying than the spirits of departed loved ones. Where a ghost might evoke sadness or curiosity, a shadow person tends to elicit pure dread. Witnesses often report seeing these entities out of the corner of their eye, only to have them vanish when looked at directly. In other cases, the figures remain in view for several seconds, watching in silence before gliding away or melting into the walls. Shadow people are not known to speak or interact in human terms. Instead, they are usually associated with a strong, overwhelming feeling of unease. sometimes even physical symptoms like breathlessness, pressure on the chest, or cold chills. This emotional reaction is often described as disproportionate to the visual event itself, suggesting that these figures may trigger a deep instinctual fear. One woman, for instance, captured what she believed to be a shadow person in a photograph she took of her sleeping cat. The black form in the hallway, according to her, could not be explained by lighting or reflections. The home was over 100 years old and had a history of unexplained activity, including strange noises, voices, and visual anomalies. Her pets would often react to things unseen, staring at empty corners, growling, or fleeing from certain rooms. Over time, she amassed a collection of disturbing images and audio recordings, convinced that something darker than a typical ghost haunted her home. Some researchers in the paranormal field suggest that shadow people are a different class of entity. Altogether, perhaps not the spirits of humans, but something else, interdimensional, being psychic projections, or even manifestations of evil. While these claims lack scientific backing, the consistency across reports is intriguing. Unlike ghosts, which may appear in old-fashioned clothes or show recognizable human features, shadow people are described almost universally as black silhouettes with no individuality. Some have glowing red eyes. Others seem to shapeshift or morph as they move. There are even reports of child-sized shadows, as well as tall, hat-wearing figures that loom silently in doorways. From a psychological perspective, some shadow person sightings may be attributed to sleep paralysis, an altered state of consciousness in which a person wakes up but cannot move, often accompanied by hallucinations. During such episodes, individuals frequently report feeling a presence in the room, often described as a dark figure standing nearby. However, not all shadow person encounters occur in bed or during sleep. Many take place in broad daylight or while the individual is fully awake and alert. Skeptics argue that these experiences are likely caused by a mix of neurological factors and environmental cues, but they can't deny the emotional intensity that accompanies them. There's a primal terror in seeing something that seems alive, yet not human, something that doesn't fit into our known categories of existence. Whether shadow people are figments of the mind or visitors from another dimension, their impact is undeniable. They represent a darker, more ambiguous side of the supernatural one that defies comforting explanations and challenges the boundary between perception and reality. Haunted places, castles, prisons, and historic homes. Throughout the world there are certain places so steeped in mystery, tragedy, or age-old legends that they seem to hold energy from the past. These locations, castles, prisons, and old homes have long been considered hotspots for paranormal activity. Visitors speak of ghostly apparitions, disembodied voices, and inexplicable cold spots. While skeptics may attribute such reports to psychological suggestion or environmental factors, the sheer volume and consistency of these experiences across cultures suggest that some places may indeed retain imprints of human emotion and trauma. One of the most famously haunted sites in the United Kingdom is Chillingham Castle. Nestled in the rugged countryside of Northumberland, this ancient fortress has a rich and violent history, filled with tales of war, imprisonment, and execution. Over the years, countless visitors and paranormal investigators have reported seeing figures such as the Blue Boy and Lady Mary, both of whom are said to roam the halls and chambers of the castle. One particularly disturbing story involves a ghostly woman in white who appeared to a footman sleeping in the pantry, begging him for water. When he awoke, he remembered the room had been locked, making her presence seemingly impossible. The lingering thirst she expressed has led many to speculate that she may have died of poisoning. Today, her pale figure is still reportedly seen in the same location, as if her soul remains trapped in a moment of desperate need. But not all hauntings in Chillingham involve visible apparitions. Some are described as emotional or atmospheric impressions, sudden chills, feelings of dread, or the unmistakable sensation of being watched. In the Great Hall, for instance, voices of two men are frequently heard in quiet conversation, though their words are never clear and always cease when anyone tries to follow the sound. These haunting subtleties lend weight to the idea that trauma may leave behind something more than just history. Similar experiences have been documented at Sealyham Castle, another fortress renowned for paranormal occurrences. Here, a woman once photographed her husband on the castle grounds, only to later discover a dark humanoid figure standing ominously behind him in the image. Numerous witnesses over the years have seen the same entity, a shadowy form said to move with unnatural silence. Visitors to the castle often report the sensation of being followed or watched, and some even claim to have fled the site in panic due to overwhelming feelings of oppression. Old homes, too, frequently become centers for paranormal investigation. Whether due to personal tragedy, violent death, or deep emotional attachment, these dwellings are often linked to restless spirits. In one particularly haunting case, a family taking holiday photos near Leeds captured an image of their children standing in front of an abandoned building. Later, they noticed a cloaked figure in the background, its arms outstretched mid-step ascending the stairs. They insisted no one was present when the photo was taken, and thus they had waited for the area to clear before capturing the image. Their shock turned to curiosity and then fear as the family began to suspect they had inadvertently documented a ghost. Haunted prisons are another realm of ghostly lore. One of the most notorious is Bodmin Jail in Cornwall, built in 1776. Once the site of public executions and solitary confinement, the jail exudes a heavy atmosphere. Paranormal researchers have captured strange figures, recorded unexplainable sounds, and even reported being physically touched by unseen forces. One photo, believed by some to depict the spirit of William Hampden, the last man to be hanged, there shows a dark figure glaring directly at the camera. The image was captured by accident as the camera had been left running while the investigators explored the site. Whether it's a medieval castle, an ancient prison, or a forgotten home, these locations seem to carry the emotional echoes of their past. They invite us to question whether certain places absorb human energy, and if so, whether they ever truly let it go. Personal testimonies. First-hand encounters with the unknown. While science and psychology offer plausible explanations for many alleged paranormal events, there remains a powerful source of intrigue, the raw emotional accounts of those who claim to have personally encountered the unknown. These personal testimonies, often filled with fear, confusion, and awe, cut through scientific skepticism and speak directly to our most human experiences: love, loss, memory, and the desire for connection with what lies beyond. Take, for instance, the story of a woman who lived in a century-old home and reported a wide range of inexplicable phenomena. At first it was subtle doors creaking open by themselves, footsteps in the hallway, lights flickering without cause. But things escalated. Her pets began acting strangely, staring at seemingly empty corners, meowing at nothing or hiding as if in fear. One day, while photographing her cat sleeping in a funny position, she noticed something disturbing in the hallway behind him. A black figure, humanoid but vague, stood where no person should have been. The photo, taken on an iPhone without flash, couldn't be easily dismissed as a reflection or digital artifact. For her, it was validation of the things she had long suspected. Her home was not empty. Over time, she documented more incidents, faces appearing in mirrors, water taps turning on by themselves, whistling sounds in the night, and unexplained voices calling out. She recorded some of the phenomena and shared them with paranormal communities online. While skeptics remained unconvinced, others who had experienced similar hauntings reached out to her, forming a strange but comforting network of believers. Another witness spoke about a ghost in her childhood home, who, rather than frighten her, seemed to behave like a member of the household. It would close doors, move small objects on tables, and occasionally cause lights to flicker. While the family was unnerved at first, they came to regard the presence as benign, perhaps even protective. It was only years later they learned that someone had died in the house under tragic circumstances. The family concluded the spirit was simply trying to make itself known, not cause harm. On the other hand, not all experiences are comforting. Some are deeply unsettling. One man described encountering a shadowy figure with lifeless eyes standing at the foot of his bed. The figure made no movement, no sound, but its presence filled the room with a suffocating sense of dread. He later described the encounter as feeling like emptiness given form. Many who've seen shadow people echo similar descriptions, faceless, emotionless entities whose mere presence is deeply disturbing. These personal experiences often defy scientific replication and therefore fall outside the bounds of traditional investigation. But they persist, and in their persistence they raise difficult questions. Can so many unrelated people across different regions, cultures, and time periods be mistaken in the same way? Is it possible that the mind, powerful as it is, creates these vivid experiences as a form of psychological expression? Or are there unseen energies, dimensions, or consciousnesses that we have yet to understand, regardless of where one stands on the issue? Personal testimonies remain a vital piece of the puzzle. They are emotionally rich, difficult to dismiss, and often life-changing for those involved. For many, it is not about proving the existence of ghosts to others. It is about making sense of something deeply personal and profound that shook the very foundation of their reality. Distinguishing spirits, ghosts, shadow people, and demonic entities. In the realm of the paranormal, not all entities are created equal. While ghost is a catch-all term often used to describe anything supernatural or unexplained, those who delve deeper into the study of hauntings quickly learn that there are distinctions, sometimes subtle, other times profound, between different types of spiritual beings. From benign spirits of the departed to malevolent demonic entities and the eerie presence of shadow people, these categories offer a framework for understanding the diversity of experiences reported by witnesses. Traditional ghosts are typically believed to be the souls of deceased humans who, for one reason or another, have not moved on to the afterlife. These spirits are often associated with unfinished business, unresolved trauma, or strong emotional ties to a specific location or person. People who encounter traditional ghosts often describe them as human-like in form, sometimes translucent, other times full-bodied. They may appear in period clothing, speak in voices, or exhibit behaviors reminiscent of their former lives. Many individuals report seeing the spirit of a loved one shortly after death, especially in times of grief. In such instances, the experience is often interpreted as a final goodbye or a form of spiritual reassurance. Shadow people, as explored in the previous section, are markedly different. Unlike ghosts, they lack identifiable human features and are often described as being darker than darkness voids rather than apparitions. They do not communicate, and they seem less interested in interacting than in simply observing, instilling an atmosphere of fear and disquiet. Many believe shadow people are not human spirits at all, but rather interdimensional beings, psychic projections, or even manifestations of negative energy or trauma. Then there are demonic entities, a category that both fascinates and terrifies. These entities are said to be non-human in origin, ancient in existence, and often malevolent in intention. In cases where demonic activity is suspected, the reported phenomena are significantly more aggressive. Unexplained physical harm, objects violently thrown, oppressive atmospheres, and emotional manipulation such as depression, rage, or suicidal thoughts. Some claim these entities can mimic voices or appearances to deceive and manipulate. Unlike ghosts or shadow people, which often fade in and out of perception, demonic entities are described as persistent, predatory, and manipulative. One of the most compelling aspects of categorizing spirits is how it reflects human psychology and cultural frameworks. In more religious contexts, such as Catholicism or Islam, hauntings are often framed in terms of spiritual warfare, good versus evil, angels versus demons. In secular or spiritual but not religious circles, ghosts are seen as lost souls needing closure or release. Meanwhile, shadow people and other ambiguous entities tend to fall into the realm of metaphysical speculation, linked to ideas about parallel dimensions, energy fields, or even consciousness projections. Many paranormal investigators use tools like EVP, electronic voice phenomena, infrared cameras, and EMF detectors in an attempt to differentiate between these types of entities. But even with technology, the classification remains interpretive and deeply subjective. One person may view a spectral figure as a ghostly visitor. Another may sense something more sinister. Much depends on the context, the emotional resonance of the experience, and the beliefs of the individual encountering the entity. Ultimately, the variety of spiritual encounters people report, from comforting visits by deceased relatives to terror-inducing run-ins with dark figures, suggests that the spirit world, if it exists, is far more complex than we imagine. Whether symbolic manifestations of our inner worlds or genuine visitors from beyond these entities defy simple explanation and continue to challenge our understanding of life, death, and what may lie in between. The skeptic's lens, science grief, and the mind's illusions. For every spine-tingling ghost story or eerie photograph, there exists an equal and often passionately argued counterpoint rooted in psychology, neuroscience, and the principles of skepticism. While believers point to personal experiences and mysterious evidence, skeptics assert that the mind is more than capable of conjuring up ghosts all on its own. from sleep paralysis and emotional trauma to perceptual distortions and cognitive bias. Science offers a robust set of tools to explain away the paranormal. Central to the skeptic's argument is grief, a deeply human and psychologically taxing emotion. When someone close to us dies, the brain searches for comfort, meaning, and sometimes ongoing connection. In that vulnerable state, hallucinations, especially visual and auditory, are not uncommon. A grieving widow might hear her husband's voice or see his figure standing in the doorway. A child might feel the presence of a deceased parent, especially during moments of fear or longing. According to numerous psychological studies, such experiences are a natural byproduct of loss and the brain's attempt to cope with the unthinkable. One of the leading explanations is rooted in bereavement hallucinations, which can feel every bit as real as physical experiences. These hallucinations aren't necessarily signs of mental illness. They can happen to otherwise healthy individuals, particularly in the immediate aftermath of a death. The comfort they bring can be profound, even if the cause is neurochemical rather than supernatural. In these moments, the line between emotional need and perceived reality becomes blurred. Another common phenomenon used to explain hauntings is pareidolia, the brain's tendency to find patterns, especially faces where none exist. A shadow on the wall, a reflection in a window, or the way clothing piles in a chair can all resemble human forms, especially in low light or high-stress conditions. The more suggestible the environment, such as a supposedly haunted house, the more likely one is to misinterpret such stimuli. Combine this with a few creaks from old floorboards or drafts in an aging home, and a haunting begins to take shape in the mind. Beyond grief and pattern recognition, sleep-related disorders often explain some of the most terrifying supernatural experiences. Sleep paralysis, for example, affects many people at least once in their lives. During this state, individuals are conscious but unable to move, often accompanied by vivid hallucinations and the intense sensation of a presence in the room. Some even report being pressed down by an invisible force or seeing a dark figure standing nearby. These episodes, though terrifying, have been thoroughly studied and mapped within neuroscience. Furthermore, the placebo effect and its lesser-known cousin, the nocebo effect, also play a role. If someone enters a space believing it is haunted, they are more likely to experience fear-based symptoms: cold, sweats, goosebumps, heart palpitations, even visual distortions. This is not evidence of a ghost, say, skeptics, but of the mind's extraordinary power to create physical responses from mental suggestion alone. None of these explanations diminish the emotional reality of paranormal experiences. In fact, they highlight how deeply our perceptions are influenced by belief, emotion, and mental state. Skeptics argue that rather than chasing ghosts, we should explore the inner landscapes of the human mind, because that is where the true mystery lies. Still, even science doesn't claim to have all the answers. The human brain remains largely uncharted territory, and just as dreams can feel real, so too can hauntings. Whether illusions, trauma responses, or some unknown function of consciousness, what people experience as ghosts may ultimately teach us more about ourselves than the supernatural. The banshee and other legendary spirits across cultures. While modern ghost stories often center around haunted houses and eerie photographs, the roots of humanity's fascination with supernatural beings run much deeper. Long before the invention of the camera or the rise of paranormal YouTube channels, Every culture had its own mythology surrounding spirits, omens, and ghostly messengers. One of the most haunting and iconic of these is the banshee, a legendary spirit from Irish folklore, known for her eerie wail that signals the impending death of a loved one. The banshee, or bean seeder, which translates to woman of the fairy mound, is described in varying ways. Some say she appears as an old hag, with wild hair and sunken eyes. Others describe her as a beautiful pale woman dressed in flowing robes. What all tales agree on, however, is her voice unearthly, mournful, and chilling. The banshee does not cause death, but is said to announce it, offering a spectral warning to families of noble Irish bloodlines. Her cry is often heard near a home, where someone is about to pass, drifting on the wind like a lament from another world. While some dismiss the banshee as mere myth, others claim to have encountered her firsthand. A viral image reportedly taken in South Asia, far from Ireland, reignited global interest in similar entities. The photo shows a strange feminine figure with disheveled hair perched on a rooftop at dusk. According to the witness, a singer from Pakistan, the figure resembled a demon more than a ghost, and her eyes appeared bright red in the low light. Locals debated the photo fiercely. Some dismissed it as a hoax or a trick of the light. Others, however, were convinced it captured a true supernatural presence and perhaps a regional version of the banshee herself. Indeed, across the globe, similar entities appear in local folklore. In the Philippines, there's the tiyanak, a ghostly baby that lures travelers into the forest. In Japan, the yurei are spirits dressed in white burial robes, bound to the mortal world by unfinished business. In Brazil, the dama branca, the white lady, haunts highways and mourns her tragic fate. These stories share common themes, death grief, and warnings from beyond the veil. One chilling testimony came from a man in India who described a disturbing encounter with an elderly woman in a dark wooded area near his home. At first, she seemed ordinary, though out of place, but upon closer inspection, her blood-red eyes and ghostly voice unsettled him. She asked where he was going, and though he quickly walked away, he reported seeing her repeatedly over the next few months, always in the same woods, always watching. He became convinced she was a spirit, perhaps one born from sorrow, much like the banshee. Skeptics argue these stories reflect our collective fear of death and the unknown. But for those who live with these legends woven into the fabric of their culture, such spirits are more than tales. They are reminders that death is not always silent, and that some energies may linger on the edges of perception, crying, warning, watching. Ultimately, the banshee and her global counterparts remind us that across time and geography, humans have looked to the supernatural not just for fear, but for meaning. We seek messages in the dark signs from the beyond, and omens that there is more to life and death than meets the eye. Ghosts in the background, accidental photographs, and hidden figures. Some of the most chilling encounters with the supernatural are not recognized in the moment they occur, but only later quietly hidden in the background of ordinary photographs. These are the moments that shake people to their core, not because they saw something strange firsthand, but because the camera captured something their eyes missed. Often discovered long after the event, these images challenge both belief and logic. How can someone appear in a photo if no one remembers them being there? One such case emerged from a family outing in Leeds, where a group had gathered during an Easter holiday for a peaceful walk through a scenic park. As they took pictures in front of an old stone structure, nothing unusual seemed to happen. But when they returned home and looked back at the images, they were startled to find an eerie figure in one of the photographs. Behind the children, posed innocently on the steps, stood a cloaked, adult-like figure, arms stretched out as if frozen mid-step. No one had noticed anyone nearby at the time, and they had waited specifically for other visitors to move before taking the shot. The family, particularly the father, was unsettled. He described the photo as spooky, adding that he typically avoids horror films and anything related to the paranormal. His sister, who had taken the image, was the first to spot the figure, and she was certain it had not been present when she clicked the shutter. The mysterious figure's placement and posture gave it a lifelike quality, but the atmosphere surrounding it was unnatural, raising the possibility of a ghost, or at the very least an unexplained anomaly. In another unsettling case, a woman took a simple mirror selfie, expecting nothing more than a casual photograph. But later, upon closer inspection, she noticed a pale figure standing slightly behind her reflection, positioned just outside of her direct view. The figure was faint, but clearly humanoid, its face blurred, yet visible, staring blankly toward the camera. Many who saw the image online debated its authenticity, but one commenter was convinced it was genuine. He said it reminded him of a ghost that had haunted his previous home, a silent presence that would close doors and shift objects when no one else was around. These kinds of stories are surprisingly common. People across the world have shared similar photos where ghostly shapes appear in windows, mirrors, hallways, or shadows. Often, these are areas that were believed to be empty when the image was taken. Some photos show spectral children peeking from behind curtains. Others reveal disembodied hands, glowing eyes, or faint silhouettes standing just behind the living. What makes these instances so unnerving is their subtlety. Nothing appears wrong until a second glance reveals something that doesn't belong, something that can't be explained. Skeptics point to optical illusions, motion blur, digital compression artifacts, and pareidolia to explain such phenomena. In many cases, they're probably right. The human brain is excellent at pattern recognition, and cameras, especially older models, are susceptible to all kinds of visual glitches. But not every image is so easily dismissed. In the era of high-resolution digital photography, some photos continue to surface that defy technological or psychological explanation. Whether these ghostly background figures are tricks of the light reflections of our inner fears or genuine manifestations from another plane, they continue to captivate the imagination. They serve as eerie reminders that sometimes the veil between the worlds may be thinner than we think, and that the truth of what lies just behind us may only be revealed after it's too late to turn around. The haunted jail. Spirits trapped in stone and iron. Few places conjure as much dread and intrigue as the old prisons and jails scattered across history-laden landscapes. These sites are not merely ruins, they are monuments to human suffering. The walls have witnessed violence, desperation, injustice, and death. Some believe that intense emotional energy, especially from trauma or violent ends, can linger in a place long after its physical occupants are gone. One such place is Bodmin Jail, a notorious 18th-century prison in Cornwall, England, known not only for its historical significance, but also for its deeply haunted reputation. Built in 1776, Bodmin Jail was one of the first prisons to introduce solitary confinement and individual cells. It was also a place of public executions where condemned inmates were hanged before crowds. Over time, the prison became infamous for its harsh conditions and the dark energy that seemed to seep from its stone walls. After closing in 1927, Bodmin Jail was eventually turned into a museum, but visitors have reported that its inmates may never have truly left. One of the most compelling pieces of alleged evidence comes from paranormal investigator Tony Ferguson, who, along with his wife, visited the jail and left a camera running unattended in a specific corridor. When they later reviewed the footage, they were stunned to discover the figure of a dark, human-like form staring directly into the camera. It seemed to materialize without sound, move with unnatural stillness, and vanish without explanation. Ferguson believed the figure could be the spirit of William Hampton, the last person to be publicly executed at the jail in 1909. Curiously, the apparition appeared moments after Ferguson had called out the name William, having seen the name etched on a plaque moments earlier. Though Ferguson describes himself as a skeptic who tries to debunk claims before accepting them, he admitted that this encounter genuinely unsettled him. "I've investigated many places," he said, "but I've never seen activity like this." For him, the fact that the photo was taken by accident without any tampering or intention lent it greater credibility. Other visitors to Bodmin Jail have shared similar experiences: sudden drops in temperature, whispering voices, and the inexplicable sensation of being watched. Some have even reported being physically touched or scratched. One woman described feeling short of breath just minutes after entering the building, followed by sharp pain in her leg. When she returned home, she found what looked like a deep thumb-shaped bruise on her thigh, though she had not collided with anything during her visit. Perhaps most haunting is the feeling of despair that seems to permeate the air. Many claim that the energy in certain parts of the jail is so heavy, so emotionally oppressive, that it causes nausea or panic. Even those who don't believe in ghosts often leave visibly shaken, their skepticism rattled by what they cannot explain. Skeptics, of course, offer alternate theories. Environmental factors such as mold, carbon monoxide, or electromagnetic interference can cause dizziness, hallucinations, and paranoia. The power of suggestion is also strong. Entering a building labeled haunted predisposes many to interpret ambiguous stimuli as paranormal. But even armed with these rational explanations, not all visitors can shake the sense that Bodmin Jail is more than a relic of the past. For them, it feels alive, inhabited by echoes of torment, memory, and perhaps unquiet souls. Whether or not the spirits of former inmates still dwell within Bodmin's walls, the jail remains a powerful symbol of how deeply human suffering can mark a place, and how perhaps that energy never quite fades. Why ghost stories endure in the human imagination. Despite centuries of scientific advancement, technological progress, and increased understanding of the mind and environment, the allure of ghost stories continues to thrive. From viral photos on social media to whispered accounts shared around campfires, humanity's fascination with the paranormal is undiminished. But why? Why do tales of spirits, shadowy figures, and haunted spaces persist in an age where skepticism reigns and evidence is king? The answer lies not only in what ghost stories are, but in what they offer. For many, ghost stories are not merely tales of terror. They are deeply emotional, spiritual, and symbolic narratives. They speak to our primal fears, our unresolved grief, our longing for connection, and our endless curiosity about the unknown. In a way, ghosts represent the parts of human life that are hardest to let go. Loss, guilt, love, memory, and the possibility that something lingers after we die. From a cultural perspective, ghost stories provide a way to preserve and pass down history. Haunted castles like Chillingham or Sealyham are as much about the lives once lived within their walls as they are about apparitions. Each tale of a spectral figure is tied to a tragedy, a romance, or a moment of injustice, transforming architecture into emotional landmarks. Whether or not the spirits are real, the stories they generate breathe life into otherwise forgotten pasts. Psychologically, ghost stories allow people to process trauma and the anxiety of mortality. The idea that a loved one might linger in spirit form offers comfort to those who grieve. Alternatively, tales of vengeful or malevolent entities allow us to project our darkest fears onto something external and nameable. A cold spot in a room becomes the ghost rather than a symbol of loneliness or pain. In doing so, the unknown becomes manageable even when terrifying. Even science has found it difficult to explain away every experience. For all our understanding of hallucinations, sleep paralysis, pareidolia, and environmental effects, there remain cases, photos, recordings, eyewitness accounts that resist easy dismissal. These gaps invite speculation. They stir wonder. And they remind us that despite all we know, there is still so much we don't. Modern media, far from diminishing belief in ghosts, has amplified it. The internet allows people from across the world to share their experiences instantly. A photograph of a shadow figure taken in Georgia can be examined and debated in Tokyo within minutes. Paranormal investigation shows YouTube channels and podcasts continue to draw millions of viewers. These stories tap into a collective fascination that bridges age, nationality, religion, and education. There's also the deeply personal nature of paranormal belief. It's one thing to hear a ghost story from someone else. It's another to feel your skin go cold to see something impossible in a photograph, or to sense a presence when you're alone. For those who have had such experiences, belief is not optional. It's reality. Even if no one else believes them, they know what they felt, saw, or heard. In the end, ghost stories endure because they sit at the crossroads of faith and fear, the rational and the mystical. They are a canvas onto which we paint our most intimate questions. What happens when we die? Are we alone? Is there more to existence than what we can measure? Whether ghosts are real or imagined, they serve a vital role in our cultural and psychological lives. And maybe, just maybe, they are more than stories. Maybe the chill down your spine, the flicker in the corner of your eye, or the unexplained creak in the hallway is not merely the wind or your imagination. Maybe, just maybe, something is watching, waiting, remembering.